Introduction. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that almost nothing in your life has changed. Not because you never tried. You did. You made plans. You promised yourself that this month would be different. You told yourself you would finally become more disciplined, more confident, more focused. But somehow, weeks became months. Months became years. And every time an opportunity appeared, the same quiet voice returned. I'm not ready. What if I fail? Maybe I'll start tomorrow. People like me don't succeed at things like this. Then one day, you see someone who once stood exactly where you stood. Same doubts, same uncertainty, maybe even fewer advantages. But their life moved forward while yours remained almost unchanged. And the painful question appears, what did they understand that I didn't? Perhaps the answer is simpler than you think. Your life cannot consistently move in a new direction while your mind keeps repeating the same old instructions, because thoughts are not just background noise. Repeated thoughts influence what you attempt, what you avoid, what you tolerate, and eventually what you believe is possible. A person who repeatedly thinks, I can't do this, may quit before discovering what they could have learned. A person who expects failure may become so focused on problems that opportunities become almost invisible. So the question is not whether your mind influences your life. The question is, who has been teaching your mind what to believe? And what happens when you finally decide to teach it something different? Chapter 1. Change your thinking to change your life. You can desperately want a different life and still wake up every morning thinking exactly like the person who created your current one. That is one of the strangest contradictions of personal growth. Someone wants confidence, but repeatedly tells themselves, I'm not ready. Someone wants healthier relationships, but enters every new connection expecting disappointment. Someone wants financial improvement, but quietly believes, nothing I do will really make a difference. From the outside, these people may appear hardworking. They may genuinely be trying. The problem is that effort alone does not guarantee progress when the beliefs directing that effort constantly point backward. This is why meaningful change often begins before behavior. It begins with noticing the thoughts behind behavior. Your thoughts influence what receives your attention. They influence what you dismiss. They influence which opportunities you approach and which ones you avoid before giving yourself a chance. Put two people in the same difficult situation, and you can watch this happen. Both experience the same setback. The first thinks, this proves nothing ever works for me. The second thinks, something in my approach isn't working. I need to understand what. Same event. Different interpretation. And because the interpretation is different, the next decision is likely to be different too. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you have more influence over what happens next than you may realize. And that influence begins with the meaning you give the event. A difficult morning does not automatically ruin the entire day. One mistake does not automatically make you incompetent. One rejection does not prove that you have no value, yet your mind can attach those meanings almost instantly. Your phone suddenly stops working. This whole day is ruined. Someone speaks sharply to you. They don't respect me. You make one mistake at work. I'm terrible at everything. The event lasts seconds. The story created around it can last hours, sometimes days. That is why one of the most important questions you can learn to ask is this thought actually true? Not, does it feel true? Those are different questions. A thought can appear automatically without being accurate. Your brain can produce a conclusion before you have enough information to make a fair judgment. And when that conclusion has been repeated for years, you may stop recognizing it as a thought. It begins feeling like reality. So begin with something simple. Choose one sentence that repeatedly damages your confidence. Write it exactly as it appears. Maybe it says, I'm too old to start. Everyone else is smarter than me. I always fail. I'm just not disciplined. Do not improve the sentence. Do not make it sound inspirational. Write the real thought. Now look at it. The moment it is on paper, something changes. You are no longer simply experiencing the thought. You are examining it. Ask, what evidence supports this? Then ask, what evidence contradicts it? You may discover that a belief you have carried for years came from one painful experience. Perhaps you judged your ability based on something you attempted before you had enough skill. Perhaps another person's progress became evidence that you were somehow behind. Perhaps one difficult period became a permanent conclusion about your entire future. This is something the mind does surprisingly well. One bad month becomes, my life is terrible. One failed project becomes, I can't succeed. One painful conversation becomes, nobody understands me. A temporary experience becomes a permanent rule. And once the rule becomes familiar, your attention starts looking for evidence that supports it. This is why language matters. Instead of, I'm terrible at this, try, I haven't learned this well yet. Instead of, I always make mistakes, try, I made a mistake here, what caused it? Instead of, nothing works, try, my current approach isn't producing the result I want. This is not fake positivity. It is accuracy. And accurate thinking gives you something emotional exaggeration often cannot, a problem you can actually solve. I am a failure gives you almost nowhere to go. But I missed 2 deadlines because I planned badly gives you information. Now there is something specific to change. You can change your schedule. You can create reminders. You can begin earlier. You can reduce unnecessary commitments. You can examine the behavior without turning the behavior into your identity. Responsibility does not require cruelty toward yourself. You can admit, I handled that badly, without concluding, I am a terrible person. You can recognize failure without building your identity around it. And you can correct yourself without destroying your confidence in the process. Your questions matter too. Ask yourself, why does this always happen to me? And your mind begins searching for examples of unfairness. Ask, what can I learn from this? And your attention begins searching for information. Ask, what is the next action I can control? And your attention moves toward responsibility. Imagine missing an important appointment. You could spend the next 20 minutes criticizing yourself. Or you could investigate. Why did it happen? Did you forget the reminder? Did you leave too late? Did you underestimate the travel time? Did you prepare badly? Once the cause becomes clear, create one correction. Set 2 reminders. Prepare the night before. Leave 15 minutes earlier. Now, the mistake has become information. That is what useful thinking looks like. You are not forcing yourself to feel positive. You are learning to interpret events more accurately so you can respond more effectively. But your thoughts do not develop in isolation. Your environment constantly feeds them. Think about what enters your mind during the first 30 minutes after waking. Messages, news, arguments, other people's achievements, complaints, advertisements, social media. Before you have even decided what matters today, dozens of outside voices may already be competing for your attention. Then you wonder why your mind feels tired before meaningful work has even begun. Try something different. Before opening social media, spend 5 minutes writing 3 things. What matters most today? What is most likely to distract me? What behavior do I want to practice? Notice the last question. Choose a behavior, not a feeling. Do not write, I want to feel confident. Write, I will speak clearly when I have something useful to say. Do not write, I want to feel disciplined. Write, I will finish my most important task before entertainment. Feelings are unpredictable. Behavior is more directly available to you. Many people wait for the emotion before taking the action. They wait for motivation before exercising, confidence before speaking, readiness before beginning. But confidence often develops in the opposite direction. Action comes first. Evidence comes second. Confidence follows. Every small promise you keep gives your mind evidence that you can trust yourself. Every promise you repeatedly abandon gives it different evidence. That is why small commitments matter. Choose one. Read 10 pages. Walk for 20 minutes. Study for 30 minutes. Keep your phone away while completing one important task. Write tomorrow's priorities before sleeping. Then do it consistently for 7 days. Do not immediately add 10 more habits. The purpose is not to create an impressive routine. The purpose is to teach yourself. When I make a decision, my decision means something. At the end of the week, study what happened. When was the habit easiest? What repeatedly distracted you? Which time worked best? What made you want to quit? What could make the behavior easier next week? Now you are no longer treating yourself like a mystery. You are studying your own patterns. And that changes personal growth completely. Notice what triggers poor decisions. Notice when you focus best. Notice which situations make you impatient. Notice which environments make distraction almost automatic. Notice which people bring out your better behavior. Your physical condition matters too. Poor sleep can make small problems feel enormous. Hunger can reduce patience. Constant notifications can destroy concentration. A chaotic workspace can make focused work harder. So, improving your thinking is not only about changing the sentences inside your head. Sometimes you need to change the conditions surrounding your mind. Sleep properly, eat regularly, move your body, reduce unnecessary notifications, keep your work environment usable. Give yourself periods without constant digital stimulation. These things may sound ordinary, but your life is largely built from ordinary things repeated. The same principle applies at night. Many people lie in bed replaying everything they did wrong. One awkward conversation, one mistake, one unfinished responsibility, one person's opinion. The body is exhausted, but the mind keeps holding another meeting, and nothing is being solved. Try a different evening practice. Write down one mistake that deserves attention. Then write one action you can take tomorrow. After that, write one thing you handled well. Keep it factual, no exaggerated praise, no self-attack, just an accurate record. Over time, something begins changing. You catch unhelpful thoughts sooner. You recognize comparison while it is happening. You notice anger before the words leave your mouth. You recognize when fear is trying to make a decision for you. That small moment of awareness creates space. And inside that space, you have options. Someone criticizes your work. Your first instinct may be to defend yourself. Pause. Separate their tone from the information. Perhaps they communicated badly. Perhaps they are also pointing towards something useful. You do not have to accept every criticism, but you do not have to reject every criticism either. Ask, what part is factual? What part is opinion? What can I improve? The same applies when someone disagrees with you. You do not always need to win immediately. Sometimes understanding the disagreement creates a better outcome than dominating the conversation. And when a plan fails, resist the urge to turn one result into a prediction about your future. Ask, what did I expect? What actually happened? What was under my control? What wasn't? What should change next time? This is emotional discipline, not the absence of emotion. You can feel afraid and still act carefully. You can feel disappointed and continue your responsibilities. You can feel angry and still choose your words. Emotion can speak. It simply does not need to make every decision. The same clarity should guide your goals. I want a better life sounds meaningful, but what should you do at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening? The goal does not tell you. Compare that with, I will study English for 30 minutes after dinner, 5 days each week. Now the mind has a target. Large goals become manageable when translated into measurable behavior. A writer can measure pages completed. A student can measure focused study sessions. Someone improving fitness can measure workouts. Someone improving finances can record spending. Behavior gives you feedback before the final result appears, and feedback helps you correct your method. Suppose you study for months and remember very little. Do not immediately conclude that you lack intelligence. Test the method. Are you simply rereading? Are you practicing retrieval? Are you solving problems? Are you reviewing weak areas? Sometimes the person is not the problem. The system is. The same is true with habits. If exercising after work repeatedly fails because you are exhausted, perhaps another time works better. If you forget to read, put the book somewhere visible. If your phone constantly interrupts work, move it out of reach. Do not depend entirely on willpower. Design the conditions around the behavior. Make useful actions easier to begin. Make unnecessary actions slightly harder to access. Your mind becomes calmer when fewer decisions are competing for attention. You do not need a perfectly organized life. You need enough structure to prevent unnecessary chaos from making decisions for you. And eventually, you may face a more uncomfortable truth. You cannot build a different life while protecting every belief that created your current habits. Some beliefs will need to be questioned. Some excuses will need to disappear. Some habits you once considered normal may need to change. Sometimes you may have to admit that circumstances are not responsible for everything. Some part of the problem may actually be within your control. That realization can hurt, but discomfort is not always evidence that something is wrong. Sometimes discomfort appears because you are finally seeing something clearly. So begin today with one thought, not 50. One. Choose the sentence that appears when pressure arrives. Write it down. Examine whether it is accurate. So, remove exaggeration. Separate facts from assumptions. Identify what can actually be changed. Then take one useful action before the day ends. Tomorrow, do it again. Eventually, you stop treating every first thought as truth. You become more careful about the language you use toward yourself. You ask stronger questions. You correct mistakes instead of turning them into identities. You build confidence from evidence instead of promises. And slowly, the process begins to compound. One thought becomes more accurate. One decision becomes better. One action becomes stronger. That action produces a different result. That result gives you new evidence. And new evidence begins changing what you believe about yourself. Your circumstances may not transform overnight, but your next decision can change today. And when better decisions are repeated long enough, the life built from those decisions can become almost unrecognizable from the one you started with. Chapter 2. Notice the thoughts you repeat every day. Most people hear thousands of thoughts every day without ever stopping to notice which ones keep coming back. You wake up and think, I didn't sleep enough. You look at your responsibilities. I have too much to do. You see someone succeeding. I'm falling behind. You make a mistake. I should be better than this. You lie down at night. I didn't do enough today. None of these thoughts may seem important by themselves, but when the same sentence appears again and again, something changes. It becomes familiar, and familiarity can make a thought feel true. Eventually, you may stop saying, I keep thinking I'm behind. Instead, you simply believe, I am behind. That difference matters, because a repeated thought can slowly become a belief, and a belief can begin influencing the decisions you make. Observe before you correct. For one day, try something unusual. Do not immediately fight your negative thoughts. Do not replace every uncomfortable sentence with something positive. Simply observe. Pay attention to what your mind says during ordinary moments. What do you tell yourself after someone criticizes you? What appears in your mind after you make a mistake? What do you think when someone your age achieves something you want? What sentence appears immediately before you begin a difficult task? Listen carefully. You may discover patterns you never realized were there. Perhaps your mind expects problems before they happen. Perhaps you frequently assume people are judging you. Perhaps you speak to yourself in a way you would never speak to someone you care about. Or perhaps you discover something else. Maybe there are useful thoughts already helping you, but you rarely notice them because your attention is constantly pulled toward what is wrong. Keep a simple record. Whenever a strong thought appears repeatedly, write down only the basic sentence. I am behind. They probably don't like me. I can't handle this. I need to do better. Nobody understands me. I should have done more. Do not write pages explaining each thought. You are looking for patterns. At the end of the day, review the list. One thought appearing once may mean very little, but the same thought appearing 10 times deserves your attention. Repetition reveals where your mental energy is going. Separate facts from predictions. Imagine receiving a message from your manager. Can we talk tomorrow? Within seconds, your mind begins working. Maybe something is wrong. Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe your performance has been disappointing. Maybe you're about to lose your job. Your heart starts beating faster. You replay recent conversations. You search your memory for something you might have done. But what do you actually know? Your manager wants to speak with you tomorrow. That is the fact. I am going to lose my job is a prediction. Your mind can emotionally experience a prediction as though the event has already happened. Your body becomes tense. Your concentration disappears. Your entire evening may be affected by something that exists only as a possibility. This is why one simple sentence can be incredibly useful. I don't know that yet. Someone has not replied to your message. You don't know why yet. A decision has not been announced. You don't know the result yet. Someone looked serious while speaking with you. You don't know what they were thinking. This does not mean assuming everything will turn out perfectly. It means refusing to turn missing information into negative certainty. Let uncertainty remain uncertainty until you have facts. Be careful with the story of being behind. One of the most common thoughts people repeat is, I should be further ahead. Further ahead in career, money, education, relationships, health, life. You look at your age and compare your current position with an imaginary schedule. By this age, I should have achieved this. By now, I should be earning that. I should already know what I'm doing. Everyone else seems ahead. But this kind of thinking creates pressure without necessarily creating direction. Replace the vague judgment with a specific question. What exactly needs improvement? Perhaps your finances need attention. Perhaps your communication skills are weak. Perhaps your routine lacks structure. Perhaps you have avoided an important decision. Now you have something useful. I am behind in life is enormous. I need to reduce unnecessary spending and save consistently is specific. I am failing attacks your identity. I have been avoiding this responsibility for 3 weeks. Identifies behavior. Specific problems give you options. Watch the words always and never. Your mind loves dramatic language when emotions are strong. I always ruin everything. People always leave. I never stay motivated. Nothing ever works for me. These statements feel convincing because they sound absolute. But absolute language often hides an inaccurate conclusion. When you catch yourself using always or never, search for one real exception. Have you truly failed every time? Have you really never stayed disciplined? Has nobody ever understood you? Has every attempt ended badly? One genuine exception is enough to weaken an absolute statement. Again, the goal is not to argue with yourself about every thought. The goal is accuracy, because inaccurate thinking can produce unnecessary helplessness. If you believe, I always fail, why try again? But if you recognize, I failed in these situations because I repeatedly made the same mistake, you now have something you can change. Stop trying to edit yesterday. Some thoughts are not about tomorrow. They are about something that happened years ago, a conversation, a rejection, an argument, a mistake, something you wish you had said, something you wish someone else had done differently. The event ended long ago. But mentally, you keep returning. You replay the conversation. You imagine better answers. You picture what might have happened if you had chosen differently. And for a few minutes, your mind behaves as if rewriting the scene could somehow change history. It cannot. But the experience can still teach you. Take one old situation that repeatedly returns to your mind and answer 3 questions. What happened? What did I learn? What can I do differently now? Then bring your attention back to the present. The purpose is not to erase your past. The purpose is to stop spending today's attention trying to change yesterday. Turn comparison into information. You open your phone, someone announces a promotion. Someone bought a house. Someone transformed their health. Someone started a successful business. Someone is traveling. Someone appears happy in a relationship. And almost automatically, your attention moves from their life to your own. Why am I not there? What am I doing wrong? Maybe I'm wasting my life. But notice the comparison you are making. You are comparing your complete private experience with a small visible piece of someone else's life. You know your fears, your mistakes, your financial problems, your insecurities, your difficult mornings. You probably know very little about theirs. You do not see every sacrifice, debt, failure, argument, disappointment, or advantage behind the image. So instead of using comparison as punishment, use it as information. Ask, what exactly do I want from what I'm seeing? Maybe it isn't their entire life. Maybe you admire their discipline, their income, their confidence, their freedom, their communication skills, their professional ability. Now the emotion becomes useful. If you admire the skill, study the skill. If you admire the discipline, study the habits. If you admire the financial freedom, study the behaviors and decisions that could realistically contribute to it. Comparison becomes destructive when it ends with, I am not enough. It becomes useful when it leads to, what can I learn? Listen to the thought before procrastination. Procrastination rarely begins when you pick up your phone. It often begins seconds earlier. There is usually a sentence. I'll start in a minute. I need more time. I should check this first. This is going to take forever. I work better under pressure. The thought makes avoidance sound reasonable. Then the behavior follows. The next time you delay something important, catch the sentence immediately before the delay. Write it down. That sentence may reveal the real problem. Perhaps the task is unclear. Perhaps you are afraid of doing it badly. Perhaps you are exhausted. Perhaps the task feels too large. Imagine a student sitting down to study and thinking, I have so much to learn. That sentence contains no boundary. The task feels endless. So define the next 40 minutes. 1 chapter, 5 pages. One set of questions. Phone away. Start. The mind handles a clear action more easily than an undefined burden. Your expectations can enter the conversation before you do. Repeated thoughts also influence how you communicate. Suppose you need to discuss something difficult with another person. Before the conversation even begins, you think, they're going to disagree. They won't listen. They'll criticize me. They always get defensive. So you enter the conversation prepared for conflict. Your voice becomes sharper. Your words become defensive. You interrupt because you expect resistance. The other person reacts to your behavior. Then you walk away thinking, see, I knew it. Your expectation influenced your behavior. Your behavior influenced the interaction. And the interaction became evidence for the original expectation. This does not mean you create every negative response you receive. Other people are responsible for their own behavior, but your mental preparation can influence how you enter the situation. Before an important conversation, choose a simpler goal. Understand the issue. Explain your position clearly. Listen. Respond to what actually happens. Do not prepare an argument against words that have not been spoken. Review your mental patterns. At the end of the day, give yourself 5 quiet minutes. Ask which thought appeared most often today. What triggered it? Was it based on fact or assumption? Did it help me make a better decision? What real problem, if any, was underneath it? What action could address that problem? Then stop. You do not need to analyze yourself for hours. Repeat this short review for 2 weeks. Patterns will begin appearing. Perhaps certain thoughts arrive immediately after waking. Others appear during work. Some begin after scrolling through social media. Others appear after conversations with specific people. This information matters because once you know the trigger, you can change how you respond to it. Maybe social media before work creates comparison. Change the time you use it. Maybe exhaustion produces harsh self-judgment. Stop making major conclusions about yourself late at night. Maybe a certain responsibility repeatedly creates anxiety because you keep delaying it. Create a plan and begin. Your goal is not to control every thought that enters your mind. That would become another impossible task. Your goal is to know your mind well enough to recognize its habits. Because a thought you notice can be examined. A thought you examine can be questioned. And a thought you question does not automatically have to become your next action. Listen to the sentences you repeat silently. Separate facts from predictions. Correct exaggeration. Identify the real problem. Take action where action is possible. And when something is genuinely uncertain, allow yourself to say, I don't know yet. Your attention teaches your mind what deserves repetition. So choose carefully what you continue rehearsing. Because every day, whether you realize it or not, your mind is practicing something. And what it practices repeatedly becomes easier to believe. Chapter 3. Stop letting fear decide your choices. Fear has an important purpose. It can warn you when something is genuinely dangerous. It can make you slow down, pay attention, and protect yourself when caution is necessary. But fear does not appear only when your safety is threatened. Sometimes it appears before a conversation, before asking for something you want, before applying for an opportunity, before showing your work to other people, before walking into a room where you know nobody. And if you automatically treat every feeling of fear as a warning to stop, fear can quietly begin making decisions that belong to you. You may call it being careful. You may call it waiting for the right moment. You may tell yourself you need more preparation. But sometimes, underneath all of those explanations, there is a much simpler truth. You are afraid. Fear is a feeling, not a prediction. Imagine standing outside a meeting room knowing that you have to give an important presentation. Your hands feel tense. Your heartbeat becomes faster. Your mind begins producing possibilities. What if I forget what I want to say? What if they notice I'm nervous? What if someone asks a question I can't answer? The physical response is real. The thoughts are real. But the future they describe has not happened. This distinction matters. Feeling afraid does not prove that something bad is about to occur. Sometimes fear simply means, this matters to me, or this is unfamiliar, or I don't know exactly how this will turn out. If you confuse fear with evidence, you may avoid situations that could have helped you grow. Separate danger from discomfort. Real danger deserves caution, but discomfort is different. Speaking honestly can feel uncomfortable. Asking for a better position can feel uncomfortable. Learning something difficult can feel uncomfortable. Meeting unfamiliar people can feel uncomfortable. Starting again after failure can feel uncomfortable. None of these feelings automatically mean you should stop. One of the most useful questions you can ask when fear appears is, am I actually in danger or am I simply uncomfortable? The answer can completely change your next decision. Discomfort often appears at the edge of unfamiliar experience. And if you retreat every time you feel it, your world can slowly become smaller. Make the fear specific. General fear feels enormous because it has no boundaries. I am afraid of failure. What does that actually mean? Failure could mean almost anything. So make the fear precise. I am afraid my manager will reject my request. I am afraid people will notice my mistakes during the presentation. I am afraid I will spend money on this idea and nobody will buy it. I am afraid I'll say something awkward when I meet new people. Now you have something you can examine. Ask, what exactly can I control here? You cannot control whether your manager says yes, but you can prepare your request. You cannot guarantee that everyone will admire your presentation, but you can practice it. You cannot guarantee that a business idea will succeed, but you can research demand, understand costs, and test the idea before making a larger commitment. Fear tends to focus attention on outcomes you cannot guarantee. Better thinking returns attention to actions you can actually perform. Turn uncertainty into a small test. Imagine someone who wants to start a business. For months, they think, what if it fails? What if nobody buys? What if I lose money? Those are understandable questions, but repeating them does not automatically provide better information. A more useful approach is to turn uncertainty into something that can be tested. Research the market, estimate the costs, speak with potential customers, test the idea on a smaller scale, observe the response, adjust. The uncertainty has not disappeared, but it has become more manageable. Instead of sitting inside fear, you are collecting information. And information gives you something fear alone cannot provide, a clearer basis for your next decision. Avoidance can make fear stronger. Avoiding something frightening often feels good immediately. You cancel the conversation. Relief. You decide not to apply. Relief. You avoid speaking in front of people. Relief. For a moment, the anxiety disappears, but your brain may learn something from that relief. Avoiding this kept me safe. Then the next time the situation appears, fear can become even stronger. The situation remains unfamiliar because you never stayed long enough to discover what you could actually handle. This is why small, reasonable steps can be so useful. Suppose public speaking makes you nervous. You do not need to begin in front of hundreds of people. Start smaller. Explain an idea for 2 minutes to someone you trust. Then practice while recording yourself. Then speak in front of a small group. Each completed step gives your mind new evidence. You were uncomfortable, but you handled it. And confidence built from experience is far stronger than confidence built from wishful thinking. You may never feel completely ready. One of fear's favorite sentences is, I'll do it when I feel ready. But readiness often develops through preparation and action. A musician does not wait until nervousness disappears before performing. A student does not become prepared by waiting for the exam to feel less intimidating. Someone facing a difficult conversation does not gain experience by postponing every difficult conversation. Preparation matters, but preparation has a limit. Before something that makes you nervous, create a simple checklist. What do I need to know? What do I need to practice? What could realistically go wrong? How would I respond? Then prepare those things. And once the useful preparation is complete, act, because endless preparation can become avoidance, wearing respectable clothes. One more article, one more video, one more revision, one more week, one more reason to wait. Eventually, more information stops helping. The next piece of information must come from experience. Fear loves imaginary futures. Your mind can create an entire disaster from something that has not happened. You picture rejection, embarrassment, failure, people criticizing you, everything going wrong at once. The imagined scene becomes so detailed that your body responds as if you are already living through it. When this happens, return to the present. Ask, what has actually happened? What information do I really have? What am I only imagining? What remains unknown? What is the smallest responsible action I can take now? These questions bring you back from an imagined future into current reality. And current reality is usually easier to deal with than 10 imagined disasters happening at the same time. Allow imperfect outcomes. Some decisions become terrifying because you secretly demand that the outcome must be successful. The application must be accepted. The presentation must be impressive. The conversation must go perfectly. The business idea must work. The new habit must never break. That standard creates enormous pressure. A more realistic approach accepts that an attempt can produce an imperfect result. A job application can be rejected. A conversation can become awkward. An idea can fail. You can make a mistake in front of other people. These outcomes may be disappointing, but they can also give you information. If every action must protect your self-image, you will avoid situations where you might look inexperienced. You will hesitate to ask questions. You will avoid admitting that you don't know something. You may refuse to show work until it feels perfect. And by protecting yourself from looking inexperienced, you may prevent yourself from gaining the experience that would make you better. Do not let an old embarrassment become a lifetime rule. Think about something that happened years ago. Perhaps you spoke in front of people and froze. Perhaps someone laughed when you made a mistake. Perhaps you tried something important and failed badly. The event ended. But the mind may have created a rule: never put yourself in that position again. The problem is that the person who experienced that event may not be the same person making the decision today. You have learned since then. You may have more knowledge, more experience, better judgment. Ask yourself, is the original event still happening? What do I know today that I did not know then? What was the real lesson? Maybe the lesson was never, don't do this again. Maybe it was, prepare better next time. Practice before performing. Ask for help sooner. Do not make the same assumption. Mature thinking remembers the lesson without turning one painful event into a permanent prison. Whose approval are you afraid to lose? Not every fear comes from failure. Sometimes the fear is disappointing other people. You may remain in a career because your family approves of it. You may avoid saying no because you want everyone to like you. You may pursue a lifestyle because it looks successful from the outside. You may hide an opinion because disagreement feels dangerous. Before an important decision, ask, whose approval am I trying to protect? Then ask, what responsibility do I have toward my own future? Other people's advice can be valuable. Listen carefully. Consider their experience. Think about the consequences. But respecting someone does not mean giving them permanent control over your choices. Your life eventually reflects the decisions you repeatedly make. So those decisions should not be based entirely on avoiding other people's disappointment. Courage is not recklessness. Overcoming fear does not mean ignoring reality. You should not make a dangerous decision simply to prove that you are brave. You should not ignore financial facts because you want to appear confident. You should not enter unsafe situations because someone challenges your courage. Good decisions combine courage with judgment. Before a major choice, write down 3 possibilities: the best realistic outcome, the most difficult realistic outcome, and the outcome that appears most likely based on the information you currently have. This prevents your mind from treating the worst possible result as though it were the only possible result. Then ask another question. If I do nothing, what happens? People often examine the risk of acting while ignoring the risk of remaining still. Not applying has a consequence. Not speaking has a consequence. Not changing has a consequence. Avoidance is still a decision, and sometimes it carries a larger long-term cost than the action you were afraid to take. Think about the regret, not only the fear. Imagine yourself 1 year from today. Which would bother you more? Trying something carefully and discovering that it did not work? Or never trying and still wondering what might have happened? This question does not mean you should pursue every opportunity. Some opportunities are not worth the risk, but it forces you to evaluate both sides of the decision. Fear usually shows you the cost of action. Good judgment also examines the cost of inaction. Take one controlled step. Choose one fear that has been influencing your decisions, not something genuinely unsafe. Choose something where fear is mostly connected to discomfort, uncertainty, rejection, or embarrassment. Write down exactly what you fear. Then write what is under your control. Choose the smallest reasonable action. Send the message. Ask the question. Practice the presentation. Research the opportunity. Make the phone call. Speak honestly. Complete the first application. Then observe what actually happens. You are collecting evidence. Maybe the result is good. Maybe it is disappointing. Either way, you now know more than you knew while sitting inside fear. And that is how fear gradually loses some of its power. Not because you never feel it again, but because you stop allowing the feeling to make every decision for you. Fear can speak. It can warn you. It can remind you to prepare. It can encourage caution when caution is genuinely necessary. But when the facts have been examined, the risks understood, and the responsible preparation completed, fear does not need to have the final vote. Chapter 4. Build confidence through action. Confidence is often misunderstood. Many people believe confident people simply wake up feeling certain about themselves. They imagine confidence as a personality trait you either have or you don't. So when they feel nervous, uncertain, or uncomfortable, they conclude, I'm just not a confident person. But confidence is rarely created by waiting until fear disappears. More often, confidence is built through evidence. You attempt something, you survive the discomfort, you learn, you improve. Then your mind begins receiving a new message. Maybe I can handle this. That is why confidence often comes after action, not before it. Stop waiting to feel confident. Imagine someone who wants to speak more during meetings. Every week, they sit quietly. They have ideas. Sometimes they even know the answer. But before speaking, a thought appears. What if I sound stupid? So they remain silent. After the meeting, they feel disappointed. They tell themselves, next time when I'm more confident, I'll speak. But the next meeting arrives, and nothing has changed. Why? Because they were waiting for confidence without giving themselves any experience from which confidence could grow. A better approach would be smaller. Do not begin by trying to dominate the entire meeting. Prepare one useful point beforehand. When the right moment appears, say it. Your voice may still feel nervous. Your heart may still beat faster. That is fine. The goal is not to feel perfectly comfortable. The goal is to complete the behavior. Afterward, your mind has new evidence. I spoke even though I was nervous. Repeat that enough times, and the situation gradually becomes more familiar. Confidence needs evidence. Think about something you already do confidently, perhaps driving, cooking, using certain software, playing a sport, speaking with close friends. You probably did not begin with complete confidence. At first, you had to think carefully. You made mistakes. You needed help. Eventually, repetition created competence. Competence created evidence, and evidence created confidence. This is why telling yourself, just believe in yourself, has limits. Belief becomes stronger when your behavior supports it. If you want more confidence, ask, what evidence would convince me that I am improving? Then create opportunities to collect that evidence. Keep small promises to yourself. Self-confidence is closely connected to self-trust. Imagine repeatedly promising yourself, tomorrow I'll wake up early. Then you don't. I'll finish this tonight. You don't. I'll start exercising Monday. Monday arrives. Nothing happens. Each promise seems small, but repeated long enough, your mind learns, my decisions don't really mean anything. Now imagine doing the opposite. You make smaller promises, but you keep them. 20 minutes of exercise, 10 pages of reading, 30 minutes of focused work, one difficult phone call, one task completed before entertainment. None of these actions looks dramatic, but every completed commitment becomes evidence. I said I would do this, and I did. That is how self-trust grows. Do not build confidence by making enormous promises during moments of motivation. Build it by making realistic promises and consistently keeping them. Preparation reduces unnecessary fear. Confidence does not mean entering every situation unprepared. Imagine two people giving presentations. The first has barely practiced. They hope confidence will carry them through. The second rehearses several times. They understand the material. They prepare answers for likely questions. They know the structure. Who has a stronger reason to feel confident? Preparation does not guarantee that everything will go perfectly, but it reduces avoidable uncertainty. Before something important, ask, what can I prepare? What skill can I practice? What information do I need? Which part makes me most nervous? Then work specifically on that part. Real confidence is often quiet because it comes from knowing you prepared properly. Do not confuse confidence with certainty. You can be confident without knowing exactly what will happen. A confident person can say, I don't know. They can ask for help. They can admit a mistake. They can change their mind when new evidence appears. Insecurity sometimes does the opposite. It tries to appear certain about everything because being wrong feels threatening. But confidence does not require pretending to know what you do not know. It means trusting your ability to respond when you encounter something unfamiliar. Instead of thinking, I must know everything before I begin, try, I know enough to take the next step, and I can learn what I don't know. Stop using other people as your measuring stick. Confidence becomes unstable when it depends entirely on comparison. You feel successful until someone earns more. You feel attractive until someone receives more attention. You feel intelligent until someone knows something you don't. You feel accomplished until someone younger reaches a goal before you. If your confidence depends on being ahead of everyone else, peace becomes almost impossible. There will always be someone stronger in one area, more experienced, more successful, more knowledgeable. A better measurement is your own progress. What can you do today that you struggled with 6 months ago? Which habit has improved? What skill is stronger? What difficult situation can you now handle better? Progress creates confidence without requiring someone else to lose. Accept being a beginner. One of the biggest barriers to confidence is the fear of looking inexperienced. People avoid the gym because they don't know what they're doing. They avoid speaking another language because their pronunciation is imperfect. They avoid asking questions because they fear looking unintelligent. They avoid starting a new skill because other people are already better. But competence requires a beginner stage. There is no way around it. The experienced person you admire once did the activity badly. The fluent speaker once struggled to form basic sentences. The skilled musician once played simple notes. If you refuse to look inexperienced, you also refuse the process that eventually creates experience. Allow yourself to be new. Use mistakes correctly. Suppose you give a presentation and forget part of what you wanted to say. Afterward, you have two options. The first, that was terrible. I'm horrible at speaking. The second, I lost my place because I depended too heavily on memorizing exact sentences. Next time, I'll practice using key points. The first attacks identity. The second improves performance. This distinction matters. Confident people still make mistakes. The difference is that they do not automatically turn every mistake into proof that they are incapable. They extract the lesson and continue. Change your posture toward criticism. Criticism can damage confidence when every negative opinion becomes a verdict. Someone dislikes your work. You think, maybe I'm not good enough. But criticism contains different kinds of information. Some criticism is useful. Some is personal preference. Some is poorly communicated. Some comes from people who do not understand what you are trying to accomplish. Instead of immediately accepting or rejecting criticism, examine it. What exactly are they criticizing? Is there evidence? Does this person understand the subject? Have I heard the same feedback from multiple reliable sources? What can I improve? This allows you to learn without handing another person complete control over how you see yourself. Confidence can be situational. You may feel confident in one environment and uncomfortable in another. Someone can confidently lead a team at work, but become nervous at a social event. Another person may speak comfortably with strangers, but feel insecure about academic work. This does not mean your confidence is fake. It means confidence often develops through experience within specific situations. So instead of saying, I have no confidence, be more precise. I lack confidence when speaking to large groups. I lack confidence when negotiating. I lack confidence when meeting unfamiliar people. Now the problem becomes trainable. You know where practice is needed. Do the thing at a manageable level. Choose one area where you want greater confidence. Now reduce the challenge. If networking makes you uncomfortable, do not begin by trying to speak with 20 strangers. Speak with one. If public speaking frightens you, begin with a small group. If asking for something feels difficult, practice making smaller requests. If you are afraid of sharing your work, show it first to someone trustworthy. The goal is not to stay small forever. The goal is to build experience without overwhelming yourself. Then increase the difficulty gradually. Confidence grows when your mind repeatedly discovers, this was uncomfortable, but I handled it. Your body can support your mind. Your physical state also affects how capable you feel. When you are exhausted, underprepared, and rushing, uncertainty becomes stronger. Before something important, give yourself time. Sleep adequately when possible. Arrive early. Prepare what you need. Slow your breathing. Reduce unnecessary distractions. These actions do not magically create confidence, but they reduce avoidable stress and allow you to use the ability you already have more effectively. Stop demanding perfect performance. Perfectionism can look like high standards, but sometimes it is fear. If I cannot do this perfectly, I don't want anyone to see it. So the project remains unfinished. The application is never sent. The idea stays hidden. The person continues preparing forever. Instead of asking, is this perfect? Ask, is this good enough for the next stage? Then submit it. Publish it. Send it. Test it. Get feedback. Improve. Progress requires exposure to reality. You cannot improve something forever inside your head. Record your evidence. At the end of each week, write down 3 things you handled well. Keep them specific. I asked a question even though I felt nervous. I finished the task before the deadline. I admitted that I didn't understand something and asked for help. I stayed calm during a difficult conversation. I returned to my routine after missing a day. This is not about praising yourself for everything. It is about creating an accurate record. Your mind easily remembers embarrassment and failure. Give it evidence of competence too. Confidence is a relationship with yourself. Eventually, confidence becomes less about believing, everything will go well, and more about believing, whatever happens, I can respond. Maybe the answer will be no. Maybe you will make a mistake. Maybe someone will criticize you. Maybe the first attempt will fail. Confidence does not guarantee protection from those experiences. It changes what those experiences mean. Rejection becomes information rather than destruction. Mistakes become feedback rather than identity. Uncertainty becomes something you can navigate rather than something you must avoid. So stop waiting for the magical morning when you finally feel ready. Choose one action you have been postponing because you do not feel confident enough. Prepare responsibly. Make the action small enough to attempt. Then do it. Let your mind experience the evidence. Repeat. Because confidence is not something you receive before entering the difficult situation. Very often, it is what you bring home after walking through it. Chapter 5. Focus your mind on what matters. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources you have. Money can be earned again. Many possessions can be replaced. But once an hour of your life has passed, you cannot buy it back. And yet, many people give the clearest hours of their day to things that barely matter, then give whatever energy remains to the responsibilities that could actually change their future. A better life requires more than having goals. It requires deciding what deserves your attention and protecting that attention from everything trying to take it away. Tension actually goes. Think about an ordinary morning. You wake up. Before your feet touch the floor, you reach for your phone. One message leads to another. Then a notification. Then social media. You see someone's achievement and begin comparing. You read a piece of news that creates concern. You watch one short video. Then another. 20 or 30 minutes disappear. Nothing terrible happened. But before you have given meaningful attention to your own life, your mind has already visited dozens of unrelated subjects. By the time you finally begin important work, part of your mental energy has already been spent. The deeper problem is not simply the phone. The problem is that whatever appears in front of you is deciding where your attention goes. When that becomes normal, your environment begins choosing your priorities for you. Define what actually matters. Ask yourself, what are the 3 most important areas of my life right now? Not 10. 3. Perhaps they are your health, your education, your work, your family, your finances, a meaningful project, a skill you need to develop. Choose according to your real responsibilities, not according to what looks impressive to other people. Then look at your actual week. Does your schedule reflect what you claim matters? If you say health is important, but repeatedly sacrifice sleep and never make time to move your body, your calendar tells a different story. If you say learning matters, but spend hours consuming entertainment and almost no time studying, your behavior reveals the stronger priority. If family matters deeply to you, but they receive only your distracted attention while your phone receives your full attention, there is a gap between what you value and what you practice. This is not a reason to criticize yourself. It is information. Your calendar is often a more honest description of your priorities than your intentions. Do the important thing before the easy thing takes over. Important work is often uncomfortable. Scrolling is easy. Replying to simple messages is easy. Checking notifications feels productive because something is happening. But activity and progress are not the same thing. You can spend an entire day being busy without moving significantly toward anything important. So, before beginning your day, identify one task that would make the day meaningful if completed, not 20 tasks. One important task. Then decide when you will work on it. Do not leave it for later. Later has no time attached to it. Instead, from 8 to 9, I will work on this. Or, after dinner, I will study for 40 minutes. A specific time gives the intention somewhere to exist. Remove distractions before you need willpower. Imagine trying to concentrate while your phone sits beside you. You are working. The screen lights up. You tell yourself you will ignore it, but part of your attention has already moved toward the notification. Who sent it? Is it important? What happened? Eventually, you check. Then you return to work and need time to rebuild concentration. A better strategy is not constantly fighting temptation. It is reducing unnecessary temptation before the work begins. Put the phone away. Close unrelated browser tabs. Turn off notifications you do not need. Prepare the materials required for the task. Tell people when you need uninterrupted time when appropriate. Make focus easier before asking yourself to focus. Your environment should support your priorities rather than constantly compete with them. Stop treating everything as urgent. One reason attention becomes scattered is that everything begins feeling important. Every message seems to require an immediate reply. Every notification deserves checking. Every request feels urgent. But urgency and importance are different. Something can demand your attention without deserving it. Before responding immediately, ask, does this truly need to happen now? What happens if I handle it later? Is this more important than what I am currently doing? Sometimes the answer will be yes. Real responsibilities cannot always wait, but many interruptions feel urgent simply because they appeared suddenly. Do not let another person's timing automatically become your priority. Protect your best hours. Pay attention to when your mind works best. Some people think clearly in the morning. Others become more focused later in the day. Whatever your pattern is, try not to spend your strongest mental hours on your weakest priorities. If you know you think clearly early in the morning, do not automatically give that hour to random content. Use part of it for something meaningful. Study, write, plan, solve an important problem, do focused work, then handle lower value tasks later when possible. Energy is not identical throughout the day. Use your stronger periods deliberately. Multitasking can feel more effective than it is. You answer messages while studying, watch something while working, switch between documents, check social media during short pauses. It feels as though you are doing several things at once. But often, your attention is rapidly switching between tasks, and every switch has a cost. You lose your place. You need to remember what you were doing. Your concentration becomes shallower. Instead, give one important activity a defined period of focused attention. Even 30 uninterrupted minutes can be more useful than a much longer period filled with constant switching. When the session ends, take a break. Then begin again. Focus does not require working without rest. It requires knowing what you are doing while you are doing it. Create a place for distracting thoughts. Not every distraction comes from outside. Sometimes you sit down to work and your own mind interrupts you. I need to buy something. I should message that person. I need to remember this tomorrow. Maybe I should check something quickly. Instead of acting on every thought, keep a piece of paper nearby. Write the thought down. Then return to the task. You are telling your mind, I am not forgetting this. I simply do not need to handle it now. Later, review the list. Some items will deserve action. Others will suddenly seem unimportant. This simple practice prevents every thought from becoming an immediate command. Learn to say no to good things too. Not every distraction is bad. Sometimes the hardest choices are between several useful opportunities. You may be invited to participate in another project, learn another skill, attend another event, accept another responsibility. Each opportunity may be valuable, but your time remains limited. Every yes takes time away from something else. So before accepting another commitment, ask, what will this replace? Where will the time come from? Does this support one of my current priorities? If the answer is unclear, the opportunity may be good, but not good for you right now. Focus requires giving up some possibilities so that the most important possibilities receive enough attention to grow. Do not confuse rest with distraction. Rest is necessary. A tired mind cannot focus indefinitely. But there is a difference between deliberate recovery and endless distraction. A deliberate break has a purpose. You walk, eat, rest, talk with someone, listen to something enjoyable, then you return. Distraction has no clear ending. You open your phone for 5 minutes and return 40 minutes later wondering where the time went. So make rest intentional too. If you need 20 minutes away from work, take 20 minutes without guilt. Real rest can restore attention. Uncontrolled distraction often leaves your mind more scattered than before. Notice what steals your attention emotionally. Attention is not stolen only by technology. Sometimes one comment occupies your mind for hours. Someone criticizes you. The conversation ends, but internally, it continues. You replay what they said. You imagine what you should have answered. You wonder what they think about you. Meanwhile, the person who made the comment may already be thinking about something completely different. Ask yourself, does this situation require action? If yes, decide what action. Perhaps you need another conversation. Perhaps you need to correct a mistake. Perhaps you need to set a boundary. If no useful action exists, recognize what is happening. Your mind is continuing to pay for an event that has already ended. Attention is a cost. Be careful what you continue paying for. What you focus on grows in importance. If you repeatedly focus on what other people have, comparison becomes larger. If you constantly focus on mistakes, failure begins to dominate your self-image. If you focus only on everything still unfinished, you may feel as though you never make progress. This does not mean ignoring problems. Problems need attention when attention can produce action. But there is a difference between solving a problem and rehearsing it. Suppose you made a financial mistake. Useful attention asks, what happened? How much did it cost? What should change? What system can prevent this next time? Unproductive attention says, I can't believe I did that, again and again. One creates a correction. The other simply keeps the mistake emotionally alive. Create a daily attention plan. Each morning, write down 3 things. First, what deserves my best attention today? Second, what is most likely to distract me? Third, what will I do when that distraction appears? For example, my most important task is finishing the report. My biggest distraction will be my phone. I will leave it in another room until the report is complete. Or, my priority is studying. My biggest distraction will be worrying about everything else I need to do. I will write those thoughts down and return to studying. Now you are preparing for distraction instead of being surprised by it. Review your day without judging it. At night, ask, where did my best attention go today? Did my actions reflect my priorities? What repeatedly interrupted me? What worked well? What should I change tomorrow? Do not turn the review into another opportunity for self-criticism. You are gathering information. If you lost 2 hours to something unnecessary, admit it accurately. Then change one condition tomorrow. Maybe the phone stays outside the room. Maybe you begin important work earlier. Maybe you decline one unnecessary commitment. Maybe you create a clearer schedule. Improvement comes from correction, not from repeatedly insulting yourself for yesterday's behavior. Focus is built through practice. Do not expect perfect concentration immediately. If your mind is accustomed to constant stimulation, quiet, focused work may initially feel uncomfortable. You may reach for your phone automatically. You may want to switch tasks. You may become restless after 10 minutes. Notice the urge, then return. Every return is part of the practice. The goal is not never becoming distracted. The goal is becoming better at noticing distraction and bringing your attention back to what matters. Over time, that ability becomes stronger. Your attention is building your life. Look carefully at where your attention goes each day, because where attention goes, time follows. And where time repeatedly goes, your life begins taking shape. If your best attention consistently goes toward learning, your knowledge can grow. If it goes toward meaningful work, your skills can grow. If it goes toward relationships that matter, those relationships can deepen. If it is constantly scattered across comparison, arguments, notifications, and things you cannot control, those things can consume years without producing the life you wanted. You cannot focus on everything. That is precisely why choosing matters. Decide what deserves your mind, put it into your schedule, protect time for it, remove unnecessary competition, return when distracted, and do this often enough that your attention begins following your priorities instead of whatever happens to appear in front of you. Because the direction of your attention, repeated day after day, quietly becomes the direction of your life. Chapter 6. Reprogram the beliefs that hold you back. There is a major difference between having a negative thought and carrying a negative belief. A thought may appear for a few seconds. A belief can remain for years. You may have forgotten where it came from. You may not remember the first person who said it, but somewhere along the way you accepted an idea about yourself. I am not good with money. I am not intelligent enough. I am terrible with people. I never finish what I start. Success is for other people. And once a belief becomes deeply familiar, you may stop questioning it. You begin organizing your behavior around it. That is where beliefs become powerful. They do not merely describe what you think you are. They can influence what you allow yourself to become. Where did the belief come from? Choose one belief about yourself that has followed you for a long time. Write it down. Now ask, when did I begin believing this? Perhaps you struggled with something at school. Someone made a comment. Maybe a parent, teacher, friend, or classmate repeatedly described you in a certain way. Perhaps you experienced one painful failure and turned that event into a permanent conclusion. A child struggles with mathematics. Someone says, "You've never been good with numbers." Years later, that child becomes an adult who says, "I'm just not a numbers person." Notice what happened. A difficulty became a label. The label became a belief. The belief began influencing behavior. So whenever numbers appeared, the person avoided them. Because they avoided them, their ability never improved. Then the lack of improvement became more evidence for the original belief. The belief helped create the result that seemed to prove the belief was true. Beliefs can become self-fulfilling. Imagine believing, "People don't really like me." You enter a social situation expecting rejection. Because you feel uncomfortable, you speak less. You avoid eye contact. You leave conversations quickly. Other people assume you want to be left alone, so they interact with you less. You go home thinking, "I knew it. Nobody wanted to talk to me." But what happened? The belief influenced your behavior. Your behavior influenced the interaction. The interaction then became evidence for the belief. This does not mean every difficult experience is created by your thinking. Other people make their own decisions. Circumstances are real. But beliefs can influence how you enter situations and therefore influence some of the outcomes you experience. Question: the belief like a lawyer. When a belief has existed for years, do not simply replace it with the opposite extreme. If you deeply believe, "I am terrible with money," repeating, "I am a financial genius," may feel meaningless. Instead, investigate the belief. Ask, what evidence supports it? What evidence challenges it? Is this true in every situation? Is it describing an identity or a skill? Could the skill improve? Perhaps you have made poor financial decisions. That is evidence about previous behavior. It does not automatically prove permanent inability. A more accurate belief might be, "I have not managed money well in the past, but money management is something I can learn." That statement does not deny reality. It creates room for change. Separate identity from skill. Many limiting beliefs take a skill and turn it into an identity. I am bad at speaking. I am disorganized. I am not creative. I am not disciplined. But ask yourself, could this be a skill problem rather than an identity problem? Public speaking can be practiced. Organization can be improved through systems. Writing can improve. Communication can improve. Financial knowledge can improve. Discipline can be strengthened through routines and environment. The sentence, "I am bad at this," makes the problem sound permanent. The sentence, "I have not developed this skill yet," creates a completely different possibility. Build new beliefs with evidence. A stronger belief needs evidence. Suppose you want to stop believing, "I never finish anything." Do not spend the next month repeating, I finish everything. Instead, finish something. Choose a small task, complete it, then another, then another. Keep a record. Your mind begins receiving evidence that contradicts the old identity. I finished this. I followed through here. I kept this commitment. One small action may not change a belief that has existed for 10 years, but repeated evidence can. This is why behavior is so important. You are not merely telling yourself a new story. You are creating proof. Watch the people who reinforce your old identity. Sometimes you begin changing, but people around you continue describing the old version of you. You've always been lazy. You never stick with anything. That's not really you. They may not even intend to hurt you. They are simply familiar with your previous behavior. But if you repeatedly absorb those descriptions, they can pull you back toward an identity you are trying to change. You do not need to argue with everyone. Let your behavior provide the answer. If you want to become more reliable, become reliable. If you want to become more disciplined, practice discipline. If you want to become calmer, practice responding differently. You do not need immediate permission from other people to change. Be careful with family beliefs. Some beliefs are inherited through repeated messages. Money is always difficult. People like us don't do that. You need connections to succeed. Taking risks always ends badly. Never trust anyone. These ideas may have developed from real experiences. Someone in your family may have been hurt. Someone may have lost money. Someone may have experienced instability. Their beliefs may have helped them survive their circumstances. But you still need to examine whether those beliefs accurately describe your circumstances today. Respect the experience. Question the conclusion. Ask, is this always true? What evidence exists outside my family's experience? Does this belief protect me from genuine danger or simply prevent me from exploring unfamiliar possibilities? Stop rehearsing the old story. Every time you repeat, that's just who I am, you strengthen the old identity. Pay attention to the stories you tell other people about yourself. I've always been terrible at remembering names. I never understand technology. I can't speak in front of people. I always quit. Sometimes these statements become part of your personality because you repeat them so casually. Try changing the language. Instead of, I can't speak publicly, say, I am still uncomfortable speaking publicly, but I am practicing. Instead of, I have no discipline, say, my consistency needs work. The second version is less dramatic, but it is more useful. It identifies something that can change. Do not use your past as a permanent forecast. Your mind often predicts the future using the past. You failed before, so you expect failure again. Someone betrayed you, so you expect the next person to betray you. You struggled with a subject, so you assume you will always struggle. Past experience is valuable information, but it is not always a perfect forecast. Ask, what is different now? Maybe you know more. Maybe you have better support. Maybe your strategy changed. Maybe the environment changed. Maybe you are more experienced. Maybe you understand the mistake that caused the previous failure. If nothing has changed, the old result may repeat. But if the inputs change, the outcome can change too. Use yet carefully. One small word can change the structure of a belief. I can't do this becomes, I can't do this yet. I don't understand this becomes, I don't understand this yet. The word does not guarantee success. It does something more realistic. It leaves the future open. It reminds you that current ability and permanent ability are not necessarily the same thing. Choose beliefs that produce useful behavior. Not every belief can be proven with complete certainty. Sometimes you must choose between two interpretations. Consider, I'm probably going to fail, and I can prepare carefully and learn from whatever happens. Which belief is more likely to produce useful behavior? The second does not promise success. It encourages preparation and learning. Or compare, people will judge me if I make a mistake. With some people may judge me, but making mistakes is part of learning. Again, reality is not being denied. You are choosing an interpretation that allows useful action. Create a belief audit. Take a piece of paper and divide it into 3 columns. In the first column, write old belief. In the second, evidence. In the third, more accurate belief. For example, old belief, I am bad with money. Evidence, I have overspent before. I have avoided budgeting, but I have also paid bills successfully and learned other difficult skills. More accurate belief, my money habits need improvement and I can learn better systems. Another, old belief, I always quit. Evidence, I quit 2 projects, but I completed school assignments, kept responsibilities, and finished other difficult tasks. More accurate belief, I sometimes quit when progress becomes unclear. I need smaller goals and better structure. Notice how different this feels. You are not flattering yourself. You are replacing vague identity judgments with specific information. Protect the new evidence. When you begin changing, the old belief may return quickly after one mistake. You exercise consistently for 3 weeks, then miss 2 days. Immediately, see? I never stick with anything. Stop. 2 missed days do not erase 3 weeks of evidence. Return. The old belief survived for years because your mind kept collecting evidence for it. Do not allow one imperfect day to destroy the evidence supporting a better one. Change does not require perfect behavior. It requires enough repetition that a new pattern becomes more convincing than the old one. Your beliefs should be updated. You update your phone, your computer, your knowledge, your plans. Why would your beliefs about yourself remain untouched for decades? Some of them were created when you were a child. Some were formed during your worst moments. Some came from people who barely understood you. Some were created from experiences that no longer describe your life. You are allowed to examine them. You are allowed to update them. You are allowed to say, that was true about my behavior then. It does not have to remain true now. Become careful about what you call yourself. Your identity influences your decisions. If you believe, I am someone who keeps promises, keeping a commitment becomes consistent with your identity. If you believe, I am someone who always quits, quitting becomes easier to justify. So be careful with identity statements. Do not give yourself titles based on temporary behavior. A mistake does not make you a failure. A period of inconsistency does not make you permanently undisciplined. A difficult social experience does not make you incapable of connection. Describe the behavior accurately. Then decide what behavior you want to practice next. Build the new version through action. Choose one limiting belief. Now ask, if I no longer believe this, what would I do differently this week? Perhaps you would apply. Speak, practice, save money, ask for help, set a boundary, begin learning. Take one of those actions. Not because the old belief has completely disappeared, but because action gives your mind new evidence. Then repeat. Over time, your internal language begins changing because your behavior has changed. You no longer need to force yourself to say, I am disciplined. You have evidence. You no longer need to pretend, I can learn difficult things. You have learned something difficult. You no longer need to hope, I can handle uncomfortable situations. You have handled them. That is how a stronger identity is built. Not through one inspirational sentence, but through a repeated cycle. Question the old belief. Choose a more accurate interpretation. Take an action consistent with that interpretation. Collect evidence. Repeat. Eventually, the belief that once felt permanent begins to weaken, and a new one begins taking its place. Not because you wished for a different identity, but because you built one. Chapter 7. Train your mind to handle failure. Failure has a strange power. One disappointing result can make months of effort suddenly feel meaningless. You apply for something important and get rejected. You start a project and it does not work. You try to change a habit and fall back into the old pattern. And almost immediately, your mind wants to turn an event into an identity. I failed becomes, I am a failure. Those sentences sound similar. Psychologically, they are completely different. The first describes something that happened. The second describes who you believe you are. And once failure becomes part of your identity, trying again becomes much harder. Failure is information. Imagine launching a product that nobody buys. You could conclude, I am terrible at business, but what exactly did the result prove? Maybe the price was wrong. Maybe the product solved a problem nobody cared enough about. Maybe the marketing reached the wrong people. Maybe customers did not understand the offer. Maybe the timing was poor. The failure contains information. But if you immediately turn it into self-judgment, you may never investigate that information. A stronger question is, what specifically did not work? That question moves your attention away from identity and toward cause, and causes can often be studied. Separate the result from the person. You fail an exam. That means your performance on that exam was not good enough. It does not automatically mean you are unintelligent. A relationship ends. That means the relationship did not continue. It does not automatically mean you are impossible to love. A business fails. That means the business model, execution, timing, circumstances, or some combination of factors did not produce a sustainable result. It does not automatically mean you can never build anything successfully. When something goes wrong, describe the event without attacking your entire identity. Specific language creates specific problems, and specific problems are easier to solve. Ask better questions after failure. Immediately after a setback, the mind often asks emotional questions. Why does this always happen to me? What is wrong with me? Why am I never good enough? These questions encourage broad negative answers. Instead, ask questions that produce information. What did I expect to happen? What actually happened? Which assumptions were wrong? What was under my control? What was outside my control? What would I do differently next time? What skill was missing? What warning did I ignore? These questions do not remove disappointment. They give disappointment somewhere useful to go. Do not review failure while emotion is at its highest. Imagine receiving a rejection you desperately wanted to avoid. 5 minutes later, you begin making conclusions about your entire future. I'll never get another opportunity. Nobody wants me. All that work was pointless. This is often the worst moment to make permanent decisions. When emotions are intense, interpretation can become extreme. Give yourself time. You can be disappointed. You can be angry. You can admit that the result hurts. Then review the situation when your mind is calmer. The goal is not to suppress emotion. It is to prevent a temporary emotional state from writing permanent conclusions. Distinguish failure from bad luck. Not every poor outcome proves that your decision was poor. Suppose you carefully prepare for an outdoor event. You check the forecast, choose a reasonable date, organize everything properly. Then unexpected weather destroys the event. The outcome was bad. But does that automatically mean the decision was foolish? No. Sometimes good decisions produce bad outcomes, and sometimes bad decisions produce good outcomes. If someone takes a reckless risk and succeeds once, success does not magically make the decision intelligent. So when reviewing failure, ask, given the information I had at the time, was my decision reasonable? Then examine what can be improved. This prevents hindsight from making you believe you should have known things that were impossible to know. Do not repeat the same failure without learning why. There is nothing admirable about failing repeatedly in exactly the same way while refusing to adjust. Failure becomes useful only when it changes something. Suppose you repeatedly miss deadlines. You apologize, promise to improve, then use the same planning system again. Nothing changes. Eventually, the problem is not bad luck. It is failure to learn from evidence. After a repeated problem, stop asking, how can I try harder? And ask, what needs to change in the system? Maybe tasks need to begin earlier. Maybe you are accepting too many commitments. Maybe you underestimate how long work takes. Maybe distractions are consuming your schedule. Effort matters, but effort without adjustment can simply repeat the same result. Create a failure review. After an important setback, write 4 things. First, what happened? Keep it factual. Second, why did it happen? List the most likely causes without exaggeration. Third, what was under my control? Fourth, what will I change next time? For example, I failed the exam. Why? I started studying too late and relied mostly on rereading. Under my control, when I began studying and how I practiced. Change? Start 2 weeks earlier and use practice questions. Now the failure has produced a correction. That correction makes the experience valuable. Do not hide every failure. People often hide mistakes because they want to protect their image. They pretend everything is going well. They avoid asking for help. They refuse to admit confusion. But hiding a problem can make it harder to solve. Sometimes another person can immediately see something you missed. A teacher can identify where your understanding breaks down. A colleague can point out a flaw in your process. A trusted friend can recognize a pattern you cannot see clearly. Asking for useful feedback is not weakness. It is a way of gaining information faster. Choose feedback carefully. Not every opinion deserves equal weight. If you fail at something and ask 10 random people what you should do, you may receive 10 conflicting answers. Instead, look for feedback from people with relevant experience. Ask specific questions. What was unclear about my presentation? Where did my argument become weak? What skill should I improve? What part of the plan seemed unrealistic? Specific questions produce more useful answers than, what did you think? And when several knowledgeable people identify the same problem, pay attention. Failure can reveal weak systems. Sometimes failure exposes a problem that success was hiding. Imagine completing assignments at the last minute for months. You keep succeeding, so you assume the system works. Then, one week, several responsibilities arrive at once. Suddenly, everything collapses. You miss deadlines. You become overwhelmed. The failure did not necessarily create the weakness. It revealed it. Your previous system depended on having enough spare time to rescue poor planning. Now you know. Failure can expose weaknesses while there is still time to correct them. Do not let success teach the wrong lesson either. Failure is not the only teacher that can mislead you. Success can too. Suppose you prepare poorly for an exam and still receive a good grade. You might conclude, I don't need to study. But perhaps the exam happened to cover material you already understood. One successful result does not prove the method was good, so evaluate the process, not only the outcome. Ask, was my preparation responsible? Would this method work repeatedly? Did I succeed because of skill, preparation, circumstances, or luck? Learning accurately from success is just as important as learning accurately from failure. Expect some attempts not to work. If you try enough meaningful things, some will fail. This is not pessimism. It is reality. Not every application will be accepted. Not every idea will succeed. Not every person will agree with you. Not every strategy will work immediately. If your expectation is, everything I try must succeed, normal setbacks will feel like disasters. A healthier expectation is, some attempts will work, some will teach me what to change. This mindset makes experimentation possible. Recovery is part of progress. After a major disappointment, you may need time to recover. That does not mean you have quit. Sometimes continuing intelligently means resting long enough to think clearly. Sleep. Step away. Talk with someone you trust. Return when you can examine the situation without being completely controlled by the emotion. Then decide what comes next. Recovery should help you return to useful action, not become permanent avoidance. Fail small when possible. Not every lesson needs to be expensive. If you are testing an idea, begin at a manageable scale. If you are learning a skill, practice where mistakes are relatively safe. If you are trying a new strategy, test it before committing everything. Small experiments allow you to learn without making every mistake catastrophic. This is especially useful when uncertainty is high. Instead of asking, how can I guarantee success? Ask, how can I test this responsibly and learn quickly? The first attempt is data. Think about learning something new. Your first attempt may be terrible. That does not make the attempt useless. It establishes a starting point. Now you know what feels difficult. You know where your knowledge is weak. You know which parts require practice. The second attempt can be more informed than the first. The third can improve on the second. But none of those improvements exist if you refuse to make the imperfect first attempt. Do not worship persistence. Persistence matters, but persistence without reflection can become stubbornness. Sometimes the right decision is to continue. Sometimes it is to change the method. Sometimes it is to stop pursuing a goal that no longer makes sense. Ask, is the goal still valuable? Is there evidence that improvement is possible? Am I learning? Do I need more time or a different strategy? Continuing simply because you have already invested time can trap you. The purpose is not to prove that you never quit. The purpose is to make intelligent decisions based on current evidence. Build a different relationship with failure. The goal is not to enjoy failure. Rejection can hurt. Loss can hurt. Seeing your effort produce a disappointing result can be deeply frustrating. You do not need to pretend otherwise, but you can decide what happens after the disappointment. You can attack yourself, hide, avoid trying again, repeat the same mistake, or you can investigate, learn, adjust, recover, then make another informed attempt. That is what resilience looks like in practice. Not endless optimism, not pretending nothing hurts, but refusing to allow one result to become the final definition of what you are capable of. Use the next failure differently. The next time something important goes wrong, notice your first sentence. If it says, I knew I couldn't do this, stop. Replace the identity judgment with a question. What happened? Then gather the facts. Separate what you controlled from what you did not. Identify the lesson. Make one concrete adjustment. And decide whether another attempt makes sense. Failure cannot always be prevented, but wasted failure can. Every setback contains information about the difference between what you expected and what actually happened. Study that difference carefully, because sometimes the experience that feels like proof you should stop is actually showing you exactly what needs to change before you can move forward. Chapter 8: Control your emotions before they control your decisions. Imagine receiving a message that makes you angry. You read it once, then again. Within seconds, your body changes. Your jaw tightens, your heart beats faster. And before you have fully considered what happened, your fingers are already typing a response. You write exactly what you feel. You press send. For a few seconds, it feels satisfying. Then the emotion begins to fade. You read your message again, and suddenly, you wish you could take it back. The problem was not that you felt angry. The problem was that the emotion made the decision before you had time to think. This happens constantly. Anger sends the message. Fear rejects the opportunity. Excitement spends the money. Jealousy starts the argument. Anxiety cancels the plan. And afterward, the calmer version of you has to live with the decision made by the emotional version of you. Emotional control does not mean becoming emotionless. It means learning how to feel something strongly without automatically turning that feeling into action. Create space before you respond. When an emotion becomes intense, your first response is often the least considered one. Someone criticizes you. You immediately defend yourself. Someone disappoints you. You immediately attack. Something frightens you. You immediately escape. But even a short pause can change what happens next. When you notice emotional intensity rising, do not make the important decision immediately if you have the option to wait. Take a few slow breaths. Walk away briefly. Drink some water. Write the response without sending it. Give your body time to move away from its highest emotional state. You are not avoiding the problem. You are preparing yourself to respond to it more intelligently. Name what you are actually feeling. Sometimes people say, "I'm angry," but anger may not be the whole story. Perhaps you feel embarrassed, disrespected, rejected, ignored, disappointed, afraid. Naming the emotion more precisely can reveal what is really happening. Imagine a friend cancels plans at the last minute. You become angry. But underneath the anger, perhaps the deeper feeling is, "I don't feel important to them." Now the conversation can become more useful. Instead of, "You never care about anyone except yourself," you might say, "When plans are canceled at the last minute, I feel like my time doesn't matter." The second statement gives the other person something specific to understand. Emotional awareness improves communication because it helps you express the actual problem instead of simply releasing the strongest emotion. Separate the event from the meaning. Someone walks past you without saying hello. Event: they did not greet you. Interpretation: they are deliberately ignoring me. Emotion: anger. But what if they genuinely did not see you? Your emotion may have been created partly by the meaning you assign to the event. When a strong feeling appears, ask, "What happened? What am I assuming it means? What evidence do I have? Could another explanation exist?" You do not need to deny your feelings. You are simply checking whether the interpretation producing them is accurate. Anger can make everything look intentional. When you are angry, another person's behavior can begin looking deliberately harmful. They knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted to embarrass me. They did that because they don't respect me. Sometimes people genuinely behave badly, but intention is not always obvious. Before accusing someone of motive, separate what you know from what you are guessing. Instead of, "You intentionally ignored what I said," try, "When I spoke and received no response, I felt ignored. What happened?" Now you are addressing the behavior while leaving room for information you may not have. Do not make permanent decisions during temporary emotions. A difficult day can create extreme conclusions. "I should quit. I never want to speak to them again. I'm done with everything." Perhaps one of those decisions will eventually be correct. But the middle of intense anger, fear, or disappointment may not be the best moment to decide. When possible, create a rule for yourself. Important decisions deserve a calmer mind. If you still believe the same thing tomorrow, examine it seriously. But Give yourself enough time to distinguish a lasting conclusion from an emotional impulse. Understand your triggers. Certain situations may produce stronger reactions in you than others. Being interrupted, feeling ignored, receiving criticism, waiting for someone who is late, feeling excluded, losing control of a situation. Pay attention. For 1 week, record moments when your emotional reaction felt especially strong. Write, what happened? What did I feel? What thought appeared? What did I do? After several examples, patterns may become visible. Perhaps criticism quickly feels like rejection. Perhaps being ignored reminds you of earlier experiences. Perhaps uncertainty makes you unusually anxious. Understanding a trigger does not excuse harmful behavior. It gives you an opportunity to prepare a better response. Your body often notices first. Emotions do not exist only as thoughts. Your body participates. Anger may tighten your jaw. Anxiety may change your breathing. Fear may create tension in your stomach. Stress may tighten your shoulders. Learn your physical warning signs. If you notice your heart accelerating during an argument, treat that as information. If your body is entering a highly activated state, your ability to communicate calmly may be decreasing. That may be the moment to say, I want to continue this conversation, but I need a few minutes. A short break can prevent a small disagreement from becoming a much larger problem. Control does not mean suppression. Some people believe emotional control means hiding everything. Never show sadness, never admit fear, never say that something hurt. But emotions that are ignored do not necessarily disappear. You can remain silent while resentment grows. You can pretend not to care while repeatedly thinking about the situation. Healthy regulation means acknowledging the emotion without letting it control every behavior. You can say, that hurt me. I am nervous. I am angry about what happened. I need some time. Honest emotional expression can be far healthier than pretending nothing affects you. Do not use emotions as evidence. I feel like everyone is judging me. That is a feeling. It is not proof that everyone is judging you. I feel like I'm going to fail. That is fear. It is not a prediction. I feel like they don't care about me. That feeling deserves attention, but you still need evidence before turning it into a conclusion. This distinction is extremely important. Your emotions are real, but the interpretation attached to them can still be wrong. Watch what happens when you are tired. Emotional regulation becomes harder when your physical resources are low. You sleep badly, skip meals, work for too long, remain under constant stress. Then something small happens. Suddenly, your reaction is much stronger than the situation seems to deserve. Before concluding that your entire life is falling apart, check your physical state. Am I exhausted, hungry, overstimulated, under unusual pressure? Sometimes you do not need a new philosophy. You need sleep. This does not mean every emotional problem can be solved through rest. It means your physical condition can influence how strongly you experience ordinary problems. Use writing to slow down emotion. When your mind feels chaotic, write. Do not create a perfect journal entry. Simply answer, what happened? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What do I want to do? What will probably happen if I do that? What response would I respect tomorrow? That final question is powerful. Not, what would feel satisfying for 10 seconds? But what response would I respect tomorrow? It forces your attention beyond the immediate emotional reward. Do not rehearse anger for hours. Someone upsets you at 9 in the morning. The conversation ends at 9:10, but you continue the argument internally until lunchtime. You replay their words. You imagine better responses. You tell the story repeatedly. Each repetition activates the emotion again. At some point, ask, is there an action I need to take? If yes, take it appropriately. Have the conversation. Set the boundary. Correct the problem. If there is no useful action remaining, recognize that continued rehearsal is no longer solving anything. You are simply extending the emotional life of the event. Fear needs a plan. When fear appears, vague reassurance is often less useful than preparation. Instead of, don't worry, ask, what exactly am I worried about? Then, what would I do if that happened? Suppose you fear making a mistake during a presentation. Prepare your notes. Practice. Know your opening. Think about how you would recover if you lost your place. Now, fear has been converted into preparation. You may still feel nervous, but you are no longer helpless. Jealousy can reveal information. Jealousy is uncomfortable, so people often try to hide it. But sometimes jealousy reveals something you want. You see someone receive an opportunity and feel a sharp emotional reaction. Instead of immediately criticizing them, ask, what exactly do they have that I want? Recognition, freedom, skill, money, connection. Perhaps the emotion is pointing toward an unmet desire. You do not need to attack yourself for feeling it. Use the information. Then ask what responsible action could move you toward the thing you value. Sadness does not always need to be fixed immediately. Not every uncomfortable emotion is a problem requiring instant removal. Some experiences are genuinely painful. Disappointment, loss, rejection. There are moments when feeling sad is a normal human response. Do not create a second problem by criticizing yourself for having the first emotion. Give yourself appropriate time. Maintain basic routines. Speak with people you trust. Then return gradually to responsibilities and decisions. Emotional strength is not measured by how quickly you can pretend something did not matter. Practice the pause in small moments. Do not wait for a major crisis to practice emotional control. Use ordinary frustrations, traffic, a slow computer, someone interrupting you, a small disagreement. Notice the first reaction. Pause. Ask, what response helps? Every small moment becomes practice for larger ones. You are teaching your mind that emotion can appear without automatically becoming behavior. Choose your response. You cannot decide exactly what you will feel tomorrow. Something may frustrate you, disappoint you, frighten you, surprise you. You may experience emotions you wish were not there. But between feeling and action, you can develop a skill. Notice, name, pause, examine, then choose. Sometimes the right choice will be speaking. Sometimes it will be waiting. Sometimes setting a boundary. Sometimes apologizing. Sometimes leaving a situation. Sometimes accepting that nothing needs to be done. The goal is not perfect emotional control. You will still react too quickly sometimes. You will still say things you wish you had phrased differently. When that happens, take responsibility. Repair what you can. Learn the trigger. Then practice again, because emotional strength does not mean becoming someone who never feels deeply. It means becoming someone who can feel deeply without surrendering every important decision to the strongest emotion in the room. Chapter 9. Surround your mind with the right influences. You may believe your thoughts belong entirely to you, but think carefully about where many of them came from. The people you grew up around, the conversations you hear every day, the videos you watch, the accounts you follow, the books you read, the people you spend the most time with. Every day, your mind absorbs ideas about what is normal, what is possible, what deserves attention, and what kind of person you should become. And sometimes, without realizing it, you begin repeating other people's beliefs as though they were your own. Your environment is always teaching you something. Imagine spending every day around people who constantly complain. They complain about work, money, other people, opportunities, the future. Every problem is someone else's fault. Every ambitious idea is unrealistic. Every attempt to improve is mocked. At first, you may disagree, but after hearing the same attitudes repeatedly, they can begin feeling normal. You start noticing problems more quickly. You become more skeptical. You hesitate before trying unfamiliar things. Now imagine another environment. The people around you still have problems. They still experience failure, but their conversations sound different. What can we do about this? What did we learn? How can we improve? Who knows more about this than we do? Same imperfect world, different mental environment. The people around you do not control your mind, but repeated exposure influences what your mind becomes accustomed to hearing. Pay attention to your conversations. For 1 week, notice the conversations you participate in most often. What do people talk about? Ideas? Problems? Other people's mistakes? Learning? Complaints? Plans? Gossip? Improvement? You do not need every conversation to be productive. Human beings need humor, relaxation, and ordinary conversation. But if most of your social environment revolves around criticism, negativity, and helplessness, ask what that repetition is teaching your mind. Conversation is mental input. Choose some of it deliberately. Not everyone should have equal influence over you. Someone can care about you deeply and still give poor advice. A family member may want to protect you from risk because they experienced failure themselves. A friend may discourage an opportunity because they would personally never take it. A colleague may criticize your ambition because your change makes them uncomfortable. Listen respectfully, but ask, does this person understand the situation? Do they have relevant experience? Are they giving advice based on evidence or based primarily on their own fear? Love does not automatically create expertise. Respecting someone does not require allowing every opinion they have to become a rule for your life. Choose your sources carefully. The same principle applies online. Imagine wanting to improve your finances. You search for advice. Within minutes, you find hundreds of people confidently telling you what to do. One says one thing, another says the opposite. A third promises an easy shortcut. The problem is no longer lack of information. The problem is deciding which information deserves trust. Before allowing advice to influence an important decision, ask, who is giving this advice? What evidence supports it? Do they have relevant experience? Are they explaining risks as well as rewards? Are they trying to teach me or simply trying to capture my attention? Confidence is easy to produce on a screen. Accuracy requires more. Your information diet matters. Think about food. If you consumed whatever appeared in front of you all day, without considering quality or quantity, your physical health could suffer. Your mental inputs deserve similar attention. What enters your mind repeatedly? News designed to create urgency, arguments, short videos, comparison, educational material, long-form thinking, useful conversations, entertainment? Again, this is not about eliminating entertainment. It is about proportion. If 90% of your mental input is fast, emotional, and fragmented, deep concentration may begin feeling unusually difficult. So perform a simple audit. Look at what you consumed yesterday. How much of it helped you? How much was intentional? How much did you consume simply because an algorithm placed it in front of you? Remove inputs that repeatedly damage your attention. Perhaps there is an account you follow that leaves you angry every time. Another makes you compare your life constantly. Another fills your mind with information you never use. Ask, why am I continuing to consume this? You do not owe your attention to every source that asks for it. Mute, unfollow, reduce, replace. Protecting your mind does not mean hiding from every idea you dislike. It means refusing to give unlimited attention to inputs that repeatedly produce no useful result. Seek people who challenge you well. The right influences are not people who agree with everything you say. Constant agreement can be just as limiting as constant negativity. You need people who can challenge your thinking without trying to destroy your confidence. Someone who can say, I don't think your plan is realistic, and here is why. Someone who asks, have you considered this risk? Someone who notices when you are making excuses. Someone who respects your goals enough to tell you when your behavior does not match them. Useful challenge is different from discouragement. Discouragement says, you can't. Useful challenge asks, how exactly are you going to make this work? Spend time around the behavior you want to learn. If you want to improve at something, spend more time around people who already practice it well, not so you can copy their entire life. So you can observe standards. Imagine wanting to become more organized. Spend time around someone who manages responsibilities well. Notice what they actually do. How do they plan? How early do they prepare? What do they refuse to postpone? How do they handle unexpected problems? You may discover that what looked like natural discipline from the outside is actually a collection of ordinary systems repeated consistently. Exposure can change what you believe is possible because it gives you examples. Do not copy results without understanding the process. You see someone successful. You copy their morning routine, their reading list, their schedule, their habits. But your circumstances are different. The visible behavior may not be the real reason they succeeded. Instead of asking, what exactly does this person do? Also ask, what principle is behind what they do? Maybe they wake early because that is when they can work without interruption. The principle is protected focus, not necessarily waking at the same hour. Maybe they exercise every afternoon because consistency matters to them. The principle is regular movement, not copying the exact workout. Learn principles, then adapt them to your reality. Your social circle can set invisible standards. Suppose everyone around you regularly arrives late. After enough time, being 10 minutes late may stop feeling unusual. Now imagine joining a group where everyone arrives prepared and on time. Suddenly, the same behavior feels unacceptable. The standard changed. This happens with spending, work, learning, communication, health, responsibility. The behavior around you can quietly influence what you consider normal. Ask, what behaviors have become normal in my environment? Are those behaviors helping me become the person I want to be? You do not have to abandon people to grow. Personal growth advice sometimes makes relationships sound disposable. Someone is negative? Remove them. Someone disagrees? Leave. Real relationships are more complicated. You may love people whose habits you do not want to copy. You may have responsibilities toward family members who think differently from you. Growth does not require treating everyone as an obstacle. It requires boundaries around influence. You can care about someone without accepting every belief they hold. You can listen without copying. You can spend time together while still protecting time for your own goals. The goal is not isolation. It is awareness. Be careful who you try to impress. Sometimes your environment influences you through approval. You buy something because people around you will notice it. You hide an interest because your friends may mock it. You avoid working hard because you do not want to appear overly serious. You choose a career because it sounds impressive. Before making a major decision, ask, if nobody could see this decision, would I still want it? That question can reveal how much of your choice belongs to you and how much belongs to the audience in your head. Create an environment that reminds you who you want to become. Your physical surroundings also influence behavior. If your desk is filled with distractions, focus becomes harder. If your running shoes are hidden away, exercise requires another step. If your phone is always beside you, checking it becomes effortless. So design your environment deliberately. Keep useful things visible. Remove unnecessary distractions. Prepare tomorrow's materials in advance. Make the behavior you want easier to begin. Your environment cannot do the work for you, but it can either support your intentions or repeatedly fight them. Find better inputs. If you discover that your current environment does not provide much support for your goals, you do not have to wait until your entire social circle changes. Find additional sources, books, courses, teachers, communities, mentors, people whose work demonstrates the qualities you want to develop. The goal is not to create an artificial world where everyone thinks exactly like you. Expose yourself to intelligent disagreement too. The important thing is that the disagreement contains reasoning, evidence, and something worth considering. Become an influence too. It is easy to think only about how other people affect you, but you are part of someone else's environment too. Your attitude enters rooms. Your habits are observed. Your words influence people. When someone shares an idea, do you immediately explain why it will fail? When someone makes a mistake, do you humiliate them or help them learn? When a problem appears, do you complain endlessly or look for what can be done? The kind of environment you want around yourself is also the kind of environment you can help create for others. Audit your influences. Write down 5 people or sources that receive a significant amount of your attention. Beside each one, ask, what does this influence repeatedly encourage me to think about? How do I usually feel after spending time with it? What behavior does it normalize? Does it help me think more clearly? Does it repeatedly distract me from something important? Do not judge people as simply good or bad. You are evaluating influence. One person may be wonderful company, but terrible financial advice. Another may challenge you professionally, but not understand your personal priorities. Different people can have different roles. Choose what you repeat. You cannot control every idea that reaches you. You will encounter pessimism, bad advice, comparison, manipulation, strong opinions, and people who see the world very differently from you. The goal is not to build walls around your mind. It is to become more deliberate about what you repeatedly allow inside. Listen widely, question carefully, look for evidence, choose your sources, spend more time around behaviors you respect. Protect yourself from inputs that repeatedly damage your attention without giving anything useful in return. And remember that repetition matters. An idea heard once may disappear. An idea heard every day can begin sounding like common sense. So be careful about the voices you place around yourself, because eventually some of those voices may become the voice you hear when nobody else is in the room. Chapter 10. Become the person your future requires. There is a version of your life that exists only as a possibility, a version where you are more disciplined, more focused, more confident, more careful with your decisions, more capable of handling setbacks without allowing them to destroy your direction. Most people think reaching that future requires one enormous transformation, a dramatic decision, a perfect opportunity, a sudden burst of motivation. But lives rarely change that way. More often, the future is built quietly, one decision at a time, one repeated behavior at a time, one ordinary day at a time. Stop waiting for your life to begin. People often live as though their real life is somewhere in the future. When I have more money, I'll finally relax. When I become confident, I'll start speaking up. When things become less busy, I'll take care of myself. When I find the right opportunity, I'll work seriously. When I feel motivated, I'll become disciplined. But there is always another condition, another reason, another delay. Years can disappear while you are waiting for circumstances to give you permission to become the person you want to be. Instead, ask, what can I begin practicing with the life I have now? Maybe you cannot change everything today, but perhaps you can change 1 hour, one habit, one response, one decision. That is enough to begin. Your future self is built by today's behavior. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. Do not focus first on possessions. Think about the person. How does that person handle pressure? How do they communicate? What do they do when they make a mistake? How do they manage their time? How do they treat their responsibilities? How do they respond when motivation disappears? Now ask, what behaviors would create that person? This is where many goals become clearer. If your future requires discipline, practice discipline now. If it requires knowledge, begin learning now. If it requires financial responsibility, begin managing what you currently have more carefully. If it requires confidence, begin taking manageable actions despite discomfort. You cannot practice being your future self someday. The practice happens today. Stop making identity depend on results. Imagine setting a goal to exercise consistently. For 3 weeks, you succeed. Then one difficult week arrives. You miss several workouts. Immediately, your mind says, I'm back to being lazy. But why should 3 missed workouts erase 3 weeks of evidence? Progress becomes fragile when one mistake is allowed to redefine your identity. A stronger response is, I interrupted the pattern. Now I return. That sentence is powerful because it keeps the mistake small. You do not need to restart your entire life. You need to perform the next useful behavior. Missed one study session? Return tomorrow. Spent more money than planned? Correct the next decision. Lost your temper? Take responsibility, repair what you can, and practice a better response next time. Recovery speed matters. The goal is not never falling out of rhythm. The goal is becoming better at returning. Make your standards clear. Goals tell you what you want. Standards influence what you repeatedly accept. You may want to become healthier. But what standard guides your daily behavior? You may want better finances, but what spending behavior have you decided is unacceptable? You may want stronger relationships, but what communication standard do you expect from yourself? Create a few simple standards. I keep important promises I make. I do not make major decisions while extremely emotional. I prepare before important responsibilities. I admit mistakes instead of hiding them. I do not spend money simply to impress people. These standards reduce the number of decisions you need to negotiate with yourself repeatedly. You already know what kind of behavior you are trying to practice. Make your goals small enough to execute. I want to become successful. Your mind cannot execute that. I want to become healthier. Still unclear. I want to become smarter. What should you do at 7:30 tomorrow morning? Turn the goal into behavior. Read 20 pages. Exercise 3 times this week. Save a defined percentage of your income. Study for 40 minutes. Practice 1 presentation. Complete 1 important task before checking social media. The smaller the action becomes, the easier it is to know whether you actually did it. Clarity removes unnecessary negotiation. Do not build a routine you cannot maintain. Motivation can make people create extreme plans. Wake up at 5. Exercise every day. Read for an hour. Meditate, study, work, journal, plan every minute. For several days, the routine feels exciting. Then ordinary life returns. You become tired. One part fails, then another. Eventually, the entire system disappears. A sustainable routine is more valuable than an impressive routine you abandon. Start with what you can repeat, Then increase gradually. Consistency creates a foundation. Intensity without consistency often creates only another memory of something you started. Designed for difficult days. Anyone can follow a plan when energy is high. The better question is, what happens when you are tired, busy, disappointed, unmotivated? Create a minimum version of important habits. If you cannot complete the full workout, do a shorter one. If you cannot study for an hour, study for 20 minutes. If you cannot write 5 pages, write one. The minimum version is not the permanent goal. It keeps the identity alive. It teaches you, even on difficult days, I can still do something. Sometimes maintaining momentum matters more than maximizing performance. Stop negotiating with every mood. You will not always feel like doing what matters. That is normal. But if every responsibility requires the correct emotion first, your progress becomes controlled by mood. You do not need to feel inspired to begin. Begin. Sometimes motivation appears after action has already started. You sit down to study reluctantly. 10 minutes later, concentration improves. You begin exercising without enthusiasm. Your energy changes once you start moving. Do not ask, do I feel like doing this? Ask, is this still important? If the answer is yes, begin at a manageable level. Measure what you can control. Results often take time. You cannot always control whether someone hires you, but you can control how many quality applications you submit. You cannot completely control how quickly a skill develops, but you can control how consistently you practice. You cannot guarantee a business succeeds, but you can research, test, improve, and make responsible decisions. Measure behaviors that are close to your control. How many focus sessions did you complete? How much did you save? How often did you practice? How many meaningful attempts did you make? These measures provide feedback before the final result arrives. Learn to think in months and years. People often overestimate what can change in a few days and underestimate what repeated behavior can produce over several years. 1 hour of study seems small, but repeated hundreds of times, it can create serious knowledge. Saving a small amount seems insignificant. Repeated consistently, it becomes something larger. One workout changes very little. Hundreds can change physical capacity. One thoughtful conversation may not transform a relationship. Repeated communication can. Compounding is not only financial. Skills compound, knowledge compounds, trust compounds, habits compound. Small choices become powerful when time begins multiplying them. Remove what your future does not need. Growth is not always about adding more. Sometimes improvement requires subtraction. Fewer distractions, fewer unnecessary commitments, less comparison, less spending designed to impress people, less time arguing about things you cannot influence, less exposure to information that repeatedly damages your attention. Ask, what am I doing regularly that the person I want to become would probably stop doing? The answer may be more useful than adding another productivity technique. Accept that growth can feel boring. Real progress is often repetitive. You practice the same skill, save money again, study again, exercise again, show up again. There may be no dramatic moment, no audience, no immediate reward. This is where many people quit. They expected transformation to feel exciting, but much of transformation feels ordinary while it is happening. The excitement often comes later when you look back and realize how far those ordinary repetitions carried you. Do not destroy your progress with one bad day. One poor decision can create a second poor decision when you think, I've already ruined today. You eat something you did not plan, so you abandon the entire routine. You waste an hour, so you waste the rest of the evening. You miss one deadline, so you stop trying to organize the week. Do not turn one mistake into permission for another. Interrupt the pattern quickly. The next decision still matters. A bad morning does not require a bad afternoon. A bad Monday does not require a bad week. Let your actions change your self-image. Eventually, something interesting happens. You stop trying to convince yourself that you are disciplined. You have evidence. You stop hoping you can handle difficult conversations. You have handled them. You stop wondering whether you can recover from setbacks. You have recovered before. The identity becomes stronger because behavior has been repeated. This is why the smallest actions matter more than they appear to. Every action is evidence. Evidence accumulates. And accumulated evidence changes what you believe about yourself. You do not need to become someone else. Personal growth is sometimes described as if your current self must be completely destroyed. But perhaps the goal is simpler. You are learning to use your mind more deliberately, to notice thoughts without automatically obeying them, to question beliefs that no longer fit reality, to act even when fear appears, to direct your attention toward what matters, to handle failure as information, to experience emotions without surrendering every decision to them, to choose your influences more carefully, and to repeat useful behaviors long enough for them to become part of who you are. You will still have difficult days. You will still doubt yourself. You will still make mistakes. You will still occasionally return to old patterns. That does not erase progress. Growth is not proven by never struggling again. It is revealed by how differently you respond when the struggle returns. The next decision. Think back to the person at the beginning of this journey, the person waiting, overthinking, comparing, afraid to begin because everything was not certain. That person does not need to disappear overnight. They only need to make one different decision, then another, and another. Because your future is not created in one dramatic moment. It is created through thousands of ordinary moments when nobody is watching. The moment you decide to begin instead of delay. The moment you pause instead of react. The moment you return instead of quit. The moment you question an old belief instead of automatically obeying it. The moment you choose what matters over what is merely easy. You cannot control every circumstance that will enter your life. You cannot guarantee every outcome. But you can become more deliberate about the mind you bring into those circumstances. And when your thinking changes, your decisions can change. When your decisions change, your actions can change. When your actions are repeated, your habits can change. And when your habits change long enough, the direction of your life can change with them.